Hey, how are you doing, guys, today? Hope you are doing well. Got a few new subscribers. Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys. Hope you are doing well. Hope you had a nice day. Got tired. Worked a bit today. Had a lot of things to do. Sorry for the delay, by the way. Yeah, a bit late. But let's stick to the streams and keep delivering some new contents. Let's keep deliver some stuff that art school won't generally have the time to teach you about, but that they don't want to. Just that they are too busy teaching you the technique, and there's already more than enough to learn from them. But here we are learning everything that they don't have the time to teach you. They are teaching you the mindset. We are teaching you... Sorry, they are teaching you the technique. We are teaching you the mindset. I'm so tired today. Sorry. Anyways. Today's presentation is about the Suncoast Fallacy. It's a strange term. We are following directly yesterday's stream again. It's establishing some kind of continuity. And the Suncoast Fallacy, I mentioned that term quickly yesterday. But it's kind of important to talk about it because as artists, we are exposed a lot to it. Because art is kind of an emotional thing. So as we are putting a lot of our emotions into our pieces, or art, or 3D, or sculpting, or drawing, or music, whatever. Generally, we are kind of ego investing into what we are producing. By ego investing, I mean putting too much of our emotion and almost our identity into the current piece that we are producing. The problem with that is that if you invest too much time and energy at a time on one thing that for whatever reason is not working as much as you wanted, as well as you wanted, if that does not bring you the result that you want, there might be the Suncoast Fallacy starting to appear during the process. Basically, the Suncoast Fallacy, it's a term that is used in business and management generally, but you can apply that to art, to whatever. It's basically the phenomenon where a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or a course of action because they have invested in it. It can be time, money, energy, emotions, efforts, whatever. Basically, they invested in something, so for them it's precious because they spend energy, time, money on it. And if it's not working, they are kind of like, no, I can't abandon that, otherwise I will lose my time and my money. It would have been worth nothing. And they are sticking to that even though sometimes, a lot of time, it's clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. Maybe not more beneficial, but at least it would save that person from getting down and losing even more time, energy, emotions, patience, doing that stuff. It's basically when you have to let go of something and you, for whatever reason you don't want to, or you can't, or you're afraid to do it because you feel like you will have wasted your time. So this is something that we are generally very susceptible to as artists. As I said, because art is emotional, and also because when we are learning, failure is part of the process, and we always want our picture to look good. It's like, okay, this first study, even though that's the first time I'm drawing that, needs to look good. Why? Because we like when it looks good. We like success. We're not really used to failure and stuff like that, which is normal. But yeah, as we know, the learning process is kind of painful. It's about making a lot of mistakes and fixing them slowly but surely in order to improve and not make them ever again. That's kind of a paradox here, because at the same time we need those mistakes to be identified and corrected in order to improve. But on the other hand, we want to do everything good right from the start. It's as if you wanted to skip the learning process and be good already. This is common sense, by the way. I'm not doing anything groundbreaking until now. But something that happens a lot, that I've seen a lot, for example, with my students, is that sometimes they are finishing school, they need to redo their portfolio. Instead of doing fresh and new pieces, they are trying to finish every piece that they had started when they were students, like even years ago. And they are like, no, I need to finish that, otherwise I will have lost my time, and I don't want to let something unfinished and achieved. And they are wasting a lot of time trying to work on some picture that they have made like 2 or 3 years ago, that has now absolutely nothing in common anymore with their style, their skills, what they want to do, who they are right now. It's a testimony of the past, which is good. It's kind of hard to work on that. It's like trying to build a house on a tilted ground. Because you are better now, you can see the mistakes, but you are still trying to save something that is not savable. So we kind of need to be aware of that, because the Suncoast Fallacy can be a huge waste of time, energy, effort, sometimes money. So it's very important to be aware of when this process is happening. Now to recognize that first, and then to address that. To ask yourself, do I need to fall for it or not? Sometimes you can afford to fall for it. I'm going to talk about when you can fall for it. You can afford to do that. But most of the case, you should not fall for that. I know that some artists will tell you, I always finish my stuff. I always want to finish everything. But with them, if it works with you, good. You don't need that video. But if sometimes you're like, hey man, I don't like this piece anymore, I don't really want to fix that, nothing is good. First of all, it might be the Suncoast Fallacy, but also, as I said yesterday, thanks to Pareto's law, let's say you have 10 hours to work on a picture. If after 8 hours it's still not working, that's definitely a problem that you should have fixed right from the start. Decrease the sound, by the way. This is going to be quite a short presentation, by the way, a bit late. But this is an important concept, even though it's kind of shorter than the other videos. So yeah, first of all, there might be the Suncoast Fallacy. And also with Pareto's law, if you take like 80% of the time to just establish your picture, there's definitely a problem. And sometimes something really fundamental, like the perspective, the composition, the framing, the anatomy, something is wrong. Something is wrong in your picture, and you didn't manage to spot that and to fix that right from the start. And yeah. I always really like this idea of spend 20% of the time to do 80% of the picture. Then you can clean it as much as you want, but at least it's done. That's why speed painting, for example, is very important. It's a very good thing to do sometimes. Don't do only that, of course. Do not do only that, because then you will develop bad habits. You'll be used to work in a very sketchy way, very dirty and stuff like that. Sometimes you need to be cleaner to optimize your PSD or 3D files. So be wary of that. But speed paint is a good complement, for example, or speed modeling, speed 3D modeling, speed whatever. Speed song composing. It's a good exercise to test your technique and to force you to learn how to cut corner when needs be. And you're forced upon that, basically. Doesn't mean that you should do that all the time, but when you have to do this, at least you know how to do that. And you're able to keep 80% of the substance of it. 80% of the quality. Basically, with Suncoast Fallacy, this idea of not being able to let go of what you are doing to maybe redo it from scratch, or just admitting that, yeah, it was not that much of a great idea, let's move on. It's all about being able to move on, basically. Again, you will see that Suncoast Fallacy is almost all about tunnel vision. And basically, there's a little thing that says something like you can see the frame. You can see the whole picture if you are staying within the frame. You need to get outside of that, take a bit of distance from the picture, and see on a more global scale what you are doing. So, when should you be aware of the Suncoast Fallacy and be sure that you don't fall for it? The first thing that you should be aware of, if you're falling into that, is basically when you are learning stuff and doing exercise. Please, don't spend 8 hours on the same picture when you are trying to learn or study something. There's no use for that. A study is like taking notes. You're taking notes, it's kind of fast. Don't rush it. But don't try to just photocopy everything that you see. Because it's not a study anymore, it's trying to replicate something which is totally different. When you're studying something, you're trying to take notes, you're trying to learn something, like learning the muscles, learning the biceps, triceps, the ankle, forearm, the fingers, shoulder blades, stuff like that. So don't do just an 8-hour study of the arm. Because Pareto's law will learn everything like 20% of the time, the rest will be rendering. If you want to learn something, always do the 20% of studying the structure and stuff like that, and the shape and the correctness of the shapes. But you're not trying to learn rendering, you're trying to learn anatomy, for example. In that case, always stay in that very efficient, so you are taking notes, you are switching regularly. The problem is you are spending 8 hours on the same picture. I had some very bad experience, for example, when I was doing figure drawing at school. We are like 8 hours straight on the same pose, on the same painting. And when it goes well, it's fine. But when it goes kind of south, for whatever reason, it's like a nightmare because you are trying to save something all the time instead of doing it from scratch. And sometimes after 4 hours, the teacher was like, hey, your picture, redo it from scratch. And you're like, what the? Sure? What? Are you sure? It shows like, yes. Strangely enough, when you redo it, even though you have only 4 hours, it's better than what you would have done otherwise. It's still worth it. I don't know if it's working like that for YouTube, but I'm pretty sure some people will be able to identify to that. But basically, when you are basically learning something, trying to study. Oh, paradox. Hello. I often do that when I am painting something that I find difficult and don't want to redo it. I try to render my way out of it, but I very rarely end up liking the results. Yeah. Something you can do is just study the structure, study what you want to study, but don't focus on the rendering. If you want to learn rendering, of course, focus on it. Try to learn one thing at a time. Because if you work 8 hours on the same picture just for study, only 20% of your time will be about learning the structure, and the rest will be rendering and detailing and doing the unnecessary stuff for you to learn. Plus, if for whatever reason it goes bad, the problem is that you will be like, oh shit, I spent 8 hours on that and the result is garbage. It's horrible. It's frustrating. Because after 8 hours, you want something to look good. Let's say instead of spending 8 hours on the picture, you basically only force yourself to spend 30 minutes on 16 different stuff. 16 different poses of your arm or whatever. Instead of having just one opportunity to learn one pose with one angle, you have 16 different ones. Plus, you don't have the time to afford detailing too much. So we'll only focus on the essential, on the substantific substance. And also, you won't be able to focus on rendering. But more than that, you will have 16 opportunities to fail. And every time you are failing, this is an opportunity for you to review what you have just done, understand where it went wrong, what were your mistakes, and attempt to correct that on the next study. Instead of just one that you spent 8 hours on that and you are erasing and redrawing and getting frustrated and your sheet of paper is looking like trash, you have 16 opportunities to do that in the same time. 16 opportunities to fail, 16 opportunities to learn more. See what I mean? Plus, let's say you fail one of the pictures, it's only 30 minutes. So it's way less of a quote-unquote waste of time. And if you have done that for 8 hours, or 2 hours, or 1 hour. Of course, don't be like, okay, I'm going to do that to the extreme. I'm going to have to spend like 5 seconds on every picture. No. Still take the time to understand deeply what you are doing. But spending 8 hours when you're studying, it's kind of useless. Because you are now trying to photocopy something instead of trying to study something. 30 minutes, it's enough to take notes. So see that as note taking. Trying to simplify things, to go to the essential, to go to the details and stuff like that. So for example, if you're studying anatomy, it's like bone structure, muscles, volumes, how to simplify that, and how maybe to render a bit of the lighting with just sharp shadows, sharp lighting, no transition. Boom. And you have 16 opportunities in the day to learn, to make some mistakes, and to fix that. So you have 16 opportunities per day to improve, or at least 16 opportunities per 8-hour rush instead of just one. So you're putting so much pressure on yourself that, of course, you are setting yourself for failure. It's like, hey, it's something I don't know. I'm going to spend 8 hours on that without knowing how to draw it. Of course, it's going to be bad. You know what? Let's say you have to draw 1,000 pumpkins. Best one won't be the first one. It will be the 1,000th one. It will be the last one. So, of course, you need to have qualitative quantity. It doesn't mean anything. But instead of just focusing on one that needs to be perfect, you have more of them that you allow yourself to be less perfect, but at least you relax and you allow yourself to learn. You're not putting yourself the pressure of, oh, it needs to look good on my Instagram for me to post it with my Sharpie and my pen and my eraser on it and put a nice filter to put that on Instagram. No, it's for you. It's taking notes. This way you are not frustrated of having worked 8 hours on something, or 3 hours, or 2 hours, or 1 hour or something that looks bad. This way you are not ego investing into that. You don't have the time to ego invest. You don't have time to get emotional into it. You just have the time to learn what needs to be done. And you're not thinking it must absolutely look good. As long as you are learning something, you are doing that right. Also, the other case where you should be aware of the Suncoast Fallacy is when you are basically looking for your first job or doing your portfolio. Basically, when you are doing portfolio, generally you are racing against time because maybe you want to quit your job for a real job in the industry. So you want to stop sitting at the grocery store, or maybe you want to get a job before you have to pay your student loan. So you are still racing against time. Or maybe you are at school and you have a deadline to deliver your portfolio before the jury, before getting potentially your exam for your degree, thanks to that. So you have a deadline and you need to be time efficient and smart. So you don't have time to lose. And you cannot spend countless amount of time to finish everything perfectly. It needs to be done, not perfect. There's a video by Jack Parker. Give me a sec. I'm not gonna play it because I don't want to get DMCA'd. You can watch that. It's a video called Finished Not Perfect by Jack Parker. It's 1 minute and 22 seconds, so it's very short. It's like a punchline. It's basically the mentality that, okay, finish it. Perfect, it's infinite amount of time. You can't afford that. There's no way. It won't work at work. And if you are doing that on your own, it will take so much time that you might have done probably Again, the 80-20 rule, the Pareto's law. So you are spending 80% of the time for the 20% result. And with that 80% of time, you could have spent 4 times 20% of the time to do 4 other pictures that are a bit sketchier, but at least it's 4 other pictures. So 4 more opportunities to learn or to produce something great. I'm not telling you to never finish something, but just that don't spend time to seek for perfection. That's the main idea. Don't seek for perfection. Search for something that is finished and good enough. Because we can always dig more and more and more and more, and you can spend your entire life on a picture and it will never be finished. So when you are racing against time, whether it's to do your portfolio because you have a jury at the end of the year, or you need to do your portfolio in order to get a job before you start paying your student loan, you are racing against time, so you don't have time to lose. So you can't afford being perfectionist on those pieces. It needs to be good enough up to the company's expectations level. But doing above that will bring you diminishing results. You do above, but doing slightly above, this extra 5% will take you so much time. It's better to produce another second picture that is 95% as good as the previous one. Also, again, don't spend countless amount of time finishing your old student piece or trying to rework your student portfolio or stuff like that. It doesn't work. Something that I'm getting said all the time is basically something like never root through the garbage once the trash has been dragged to the curb. You get messy, your neighbor sees that, and what you thought was worth digging for was never as valuable as you thought it was. Against its Pareto's law. And basically, it's like always time and effort better spent trying to develop new pieces that are fresh, more prospective, rather than trying to save a broken and dysfunctional one that is right from the start. I find taking part in challenges in value group a very good way to force yourself to have some deadlines. But of course, your portfolio's cohesiveness will not be the same as the planned one. It's a different stuff. Of course, you can do that. It just probably won't be in your portfolio because the subject might be a bit different. It's a very good way to force yourself to have some deadlines. Some outstation contest is very good. Unless you have infinite amount of time, you will have a deadline. At some point, you need to cut corners and finish it and accept that it's finished. Could it be better? Of course, as always. But so it is for everyone else. And it's part of the game. That's why they are generally imposing some quite tight deadlines, like 3 weeks. 3 to 5 weeks in general. So it's pretty short. So don't be afraid of that. That's fine. It's the same rule for everyone. Nobody has infinite amount of time to work on a picture. Sometimes I'm having some conversations like that with some students. It's like, hey team, can you look at that piece I'm currently working on? Yeah, sure. Let's have a look. Wait. Okay, when did you do that piece? A student is saying something like, well, it was taking dust in my hard drive for like the 2 last years. But I wanted to get everything unfinished done before moving on. And sure, I'm like... Stupid. Sure, I'm like, dude, why are you sticking to that piece while you could redo it from scratch so much better now that you have 2 more years of experience, new techniques, you know Blender, you know 3D, you know to do photo bashing. Perspective was shit, framing was shit, composition was shit. Why are you sticking to that? Just redo it up to your level. And the person is generally like, well, because it would be time wasted in the past. I spent like 6 hours on it. I would have regrets and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, you're so much better than that now. This piece with that shitty composition and less experienced train of thoughts, basically. Train of thoughts. It will hurt your portfolio. Because it's not representative of your current level. If you spend like 10 additional hours finishing it, with those 10 hours, you could redo it perfectly from scratch, like 10 times better. Your current level. And then it's an endless circle. It's like, but I don't want to feel like I'm wasting my time, man. But you will have lost even more time by finishing and then realizing it's not as good as your most recent piece. So it will save you time by letting it go and redoing it from scratch. But I don't want to let it go. And so on. It's like, but yeah, it's time wasted. But I don't want to let it go. It's time wasted. I don't want to let it go.
Stupid. You fucking donkey. Stop lying to me. You deserve a kick in the nuts. You're saying yes all the fucking time, yet nothing's done. If you just shut the fuck up for 30 seconds, you might learn something.
Sorry. Don't be that person. Please. Just don't be that person. As simple as that. Again, always talking about Bob. Bob is like that. I swear to God that Bob is a real character. It's not named Bob. But this is always the same person. I swear to God. To whatever, to the Art God, to Jama, to Twitch, to YouTube. I swear it's always the same person. It's not a fake. But yeah. And this person quit school. It was like, it's been 2 years that this person is just finishing up some sketches that he had started when he was at school. It's like, dude, why? Don't you have new ideas? It's just the Suncoast Fallacy, because what's hard with the Suncoast Fallacy is that you must admit at some point, you know, to let that go. It's like the grieving stage. Go through anger, denial. So anger is like, oh, that piece is not great. And denial is like, oh, it's kind of okay. I think I can do it. Then it's like bargaining. Yeah, it's not that bad. I can probably save it if I redo it. Or rework it like a lot. I need to fix that and that and that and that and that. It's acceptation. It's like, oh, fuck, what a mess. And resignation. Resignation. It's like, fuck, what did I do? It's a mess. And acceptation is like, yeah, it was better to let it go and redo it from scratch. Just a grieving process. Sorry, I'm kind of tired. My thinking process is kind of messy tonight. I'm sorry. It's going to be better tomorrow. But yeah, it's like a grieving process. And the first step is to admit. Because when you are stuck into anger, denial, bargaining, you are still not accepting the idea that it's shit. Or not up to your level. What you need to do is to accept that, okay, it was what I did in the past. I did nothing wrong. It's not bad. It's just not as good as what I can do now. It's not being a failure. It's not being weak. It's not surrendering. It's not giving up. It's being smart. It's being wise. Otherwise, you are just trying to swim with cement shoes. Why would you keep like a bag of brick on your shoulder? That is, every brick is like an old piece of you. While you could just let that go and do some new, fresh, and prospective new piece. As simple as that. It's not really simple, I know. That's the entire point of the Suncoast Fallacy, basically. It's just about accepting to let go. You won't finish every sketch you do. A good exercise is like, pick up a page, fill that up with some black and white composition. You have like 3 minutes per composition. Go freestyle. Some of them will be shit, some of them will be good, some of them will be even better. Eventually on the entire sheet, you will be able maybe to save 3 of them to push them a bit. Maybe one of them will be a finished piece, and that's fine. This is so important to learn that. Because if you don't learn that, the Suncoast Fallacy in action would ruin your career, basically. It will make you unable to access a career. Because something that you need to realize, especially in the creative jobs like concept art, illustration, design in general, maybe 80 to 95% of what you are producing will go to the trash. It will not get accepted by your client. It's not that it's bad. It's just that they want something very specific and you need some trial and error before figuring that out. Of course, there are ways to make that a bit easier. Like, for example, making your client work for you by giving you more insight about, hey, how do you want the sky? Or do you want the grass to be? Or do you want this character to look like? Stuff like that. But in general, it needs time before figuring out what your client wants. So, of course, a lot of your sketches, design parts, color choices, color keys, details, propositions will be refused by your client. And this is part of the game. You're trying to solve problems and you don't solve a big problem, a multi-million-dollar problem in 1 hour. It takes time, takes trial and error. You know what? This is fine. And you need absolutely to accept that basically when something is not right, when one of your picture is refused by the client, it's not bad. It's not a problem. If it's refused for 6 months straight, of course, this is a problem. If you did few tries and errors, like 6 or 7 before figuring out something that goes in the direction of what the client wants, that's fine. That's part of the job, because you are trying to figure out something that even the art director doesn't know what it is. And they are okay with the idea of us, designer, failing the task. It's not failing, because when something is refused, closes the door. So technically, that's something you don't have to explore anymore. So in some ways, if you're not figuring out what the client wants, at least you know what the client doesn't want. So in some ways, you're already starting to fix the problem. And you're starting to get closer and closer and closer by closing different doors. At some point, there will be only one obvious choice. So even if your stuff goes to the trash, it's a way for you and for your design process to move on towards something better. Again, it's not a failure, it's an opportunity to learn, to fix a problem. If you start thinking all the time like that, you will build first a lot of resilience against feedback and setbacks and criticism. And also, you will be an excellent problem solver in a company. And it can go beyond just producing art. It can go also on the human level, on the team management, on the corporate level and stuff like that. It can get you very high in the hierarchy if you are a good problem solver. But when there is a setback, when there is a problem, you can either cry about that, or on the contrary, you can cheer about that. Like, oh, cool, a problem. That's an opportunity to fix something and to get the situation better once it's fixed. The Suncoast Fallacy is seeing every problem as something horrible that either needs to be fixed, but not for the sake of improving. It's for the sake of not losing what has been done before. When the Suncoast Fallacy is in action, you are basically playing not to lose, instead of playing to win. It's like playing at the casino with the chips. I'm not encouraging gambling, by the way, or playing poker or whatever. There are some people that start to get defensive because they start to get emotional, like, oh my god, I have a lot of money, I don't want to lose that. Just cash that out and get away from the table. But if you are still playing, it means that you want more and you are willing to risk that. And those players, they are like, oh, I need to keep playing, I can't, or I don't want to give up or to quit or to cash out. I will still play, but I don't want to lose. So I'm afraid of getting emotional. I'm taking actions out of emotion and not using my reason to filter through that and to use both of them together. So I'm making mistakes. It compounds and in the end you get wrecked. It's playing not to lose. On the contrary, there's someone like, okay, I got already a lot of coins on the table. I want even more. How do we do that? This is a more aggressive way of solving a problem. And it's like, okay, I lost a bit of money. How do I make that back? This is playing to win. Against playing not to lose. Suncoast Fallacy is playing not to lose. And guess what? When you are playing not to lose, you will always lose. Because you are not trying to improve. You are trying to, at best, remain at the same level. But as you are already considering that you are failing, because again, potential failure or future failure in your brain is actual failure in the way you are feeling about that. So when you are playing not to lose, you are feeling that you are already losing. And you need to save that. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in some way. This is a pure mindset thing tonight. Yeah. Playing not to lose. Guess what? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy and you will lose. If you want to not lose plus win, you need to play to win. This is your sentence, of course. It's just to illustrate the Suncoast Fallacy in action. The only actionable advice tonight is be able to recognize when this is happening to you, when you are feeling this Suncoast Fallacy in action. And when you recognize that, ask yourself, am I in a situation where I'm racing against time? If you are, you can't afford to lose more time. So to cut the useless, keep the useful. If it involves starting from scratch again to fix a big problem, do it. It's better to, let me read that again. It's always time and effort better spent trying to develop new PCs rather than trying to save a broken and dysfunctional one. Because again, you are building on top of your failures. So you already know what not to do. So technically, you also know a bit of what to do. Plus, you already have like 80% of the composition, so it's quick and easy to reproduce that but fixing the mistakes at the same time. Let's say your perspective is fucked up and you need to redo the piece from scratch. You still have the composition. Just need to put that in a proper perspective. Maybe change the composition just a bit. It's like 5% of work. You can redo that in a few minutes. Then you color pick the values and stuff like that. And if only the perspective was wrong, everything else is good, the value are good, you can color pick them. Texture are good, you can pick them. You can pick everything, just need to fix that. Just start clean. It's easier. Also, if you're working for companies and you are feeling that, remember that your boss, your client, your lead, your art director is always right. So, your art director, if he or she has horrible taste, according to you, that's none of your problem. The only problem is you ego investing into the picture that you are producing for someone else. And you are not the one defining what they want. You're the one trying to figure out what they want. This is very different. Also, when you are in a technical job like VFX, character sculpting, ZBrush. Hello, Tassila. How are you doing?
Hey there. Howdy.
When you're working for a client or a company, sometimes they have shitty taste. You need to accept that because you're not working for yourself, you're working for the company or for the client. As long as they are happy, that's all that matters. At least in your professional side of your career. You can still think it's shit and stuff like that, but that's none of your opinion, basically. And yeah, that's none of your business. As long as they are okay with that, if it's good or not, it's none of your business. You must do everything to please them. If you consider that good or not, that's none of their interest. They don't care. Nobody cares. It's not to be harsh towards people. Just to make you realize that at some point you're working for something bigger than yourself. If you stick to that mindset of the Suncoast Fallacy, that's how you can be like, oh, I hate working for someone. I'm always doing crap. I'm better than that. Stuff like that. So you need to build some kind of resistance to that. I'm good busy converting my able to crypto. Oh my god, what did I do? I created a monster.
Children, behave.
So that's when you should be able to identify the Suncoast Fallacy and not follow it. But sometimes you can afford to stick to it. To be like, hey, maybe should be aware of that. So when you are learning, don't fall for the Suncoast Fallacy. When you are basically your client, you need to identify that. And you need to not fall for that. Not in the sense that you need to redo it from scratch. Sometimes you have to, because your client asks for. In that case, you need to suck it and accept it. But if you are still working on shitty stuff in your head, it's like, it's shit, it's garbage. You should do it from scratch, but your client doesn't want that. You need to stick to it too. So when you have no one in the process, which happens most of the time, you need to do that. Again, don't invest your emotion in something that does not belong to you. It belongs to the company. If you can put your heart into it and put your enthusiasm into it, even though it might be not as good as you want, good. That's better, actually. But if it's garbage, just don't involve your emotion into it. It's not good. It's not pleasant. It's not unpleasant. It's just your work. And you are paid for that. That's already your motivation for that. I really want to talk about a nuanced approach. I already talked about it a bit. This presentation is going to be very short. It's almost over already. But yeah, don't be afraid to start something from scratch. It won't be time wasted because you will have learned from the previous mistakes. It's like when you are playing a musical instrument, for example. When you are learning a song, repeating the same song over and over again until you are able to avoid the traps and the mistakes. Sometimes if it takes playing that over and over 100 times, do it. In the movie industry, sometimes some artists have to do like 800 composition because before being able to perfectly get the essence of the composition. It might take weeks. It's part of the game. Same. Sorry. So for example, when you are playing Dark Souls or any hard video game, It's part of the learning process to start over and over again against the same boss until you finally beat it. Sometimes you're like against the Demon Prince, the two big Demon Prince at the end of Dark Souls 3. This one was a nightmare to me. You beat one, you beat the second one, you're like, yeah, I'm the shit! And then they're emerging and this is an even bigger Demon Prince fighting you, like, whoo! Go over and over again, it's exhausting. At some point you die and you just need one hit to get killed. And if you're like, fuck it, I'm rage quitting, I'm not playing that game ever again. And you lost. You are so close to that. You just need to redo it from scratch. It would be easier than before because you went through the process, you learned the patterns, you learn how to beat the first one with the poison breath, you need to also beat the second one with the flames. Then you need to learn which one to kill first. To have either the meteors or the laser beam. I don't remember which one is easier. I think it's the laser beam. I'm not sure. But basically, you have learned the patterns. So it's easier for you to go through the process. At some point, you will manage to get it. It's just about not giving up. And being able to be okay. I'm letting go of this run. I was so close, but I fucked up for whatever reason. Let's do that again. Building on top of the previous mistakes. Learning from them. It's going to be easier. I'm failing again. Okay, let's redo that again and build on top of that again. It's going to be even easier and easier and easier and easier until at some point you beat it. At some point, the game is like, yeah, it's a relaxation. It's zen. It's cool. In the flow, I know every pattern. The boss is easy. I'm starting to take pleasure in beating the game this way. But it's not really Dark Souls. The fights against the bosses in Dark Souls are pretty short. But especially when you are doing studies, or when you are producing in general, always remember our Pareto's law, 80% of the results in 20% of the time and effort. You always apply that and you stop and quickly after the 20% of work and the 80% of results. You redo that from scratch when you are learning, when you are sketching, when you are doing stuff. I'm not telling you to get always half finished stuff. That you can use that initial kick of efficiency and try to farm that like a resource, a very explosive resource, in order to learn faster. Because after that 20% of effort and 80% of results, you're spending so much time and effort to get just a scrap. It's not worth it. It's better to start it again from scratch on another subject that is similar enough. And this is how you learn. Of course, if you want to learn rendering, it's a different stuff. In that case, you focus on rendering. At some point, you will have for sure to push it to test it. But when you are learning, be quick. Don't be too quick either. I like the 30-minute format. It's kind of good. Enough for you to think, but not enough for you to be too exhausted in the details. Avoid like the 5 minutes or 2 minutes. It's kind of whatever. 5 minutes can be good for some anatomy parts, but don't go below that for sure. Unless you are starting to get very easy at drawing anatomy. In that case, yeah, sure, do some gesture drawing in 30 seconds, whatever. You know that better. But I'm talking in general. If it's really in 30 minutes, kind of short, to be honest, sometimes. But whatever. I like this idea of speed paint and speed producing. I'm not telling you to do always that, because then you will always be used to cutting corners. If you can channel that to learn, to use that initial kick, that's how you learn pretty fast. Tomorrow, by the way, we're going to learn about how to learn pretty fast. How to learn anything pretty fast. Like how to learn 80% of a subject with 20% of the time, basically. We're gonna talk about that tomorrow. It's going to be fun. But yeah. Any questions? I know it was quite a short presentation. It was building on top of the previous one, so not much stuff to introduce, stuff like that. Tomorrow we are talking about how to learn efficiently anything. It's going to be the art version of that, of course. You can apply to other domains, I guess. Any question in the chat? I'm gonna connect on Discord for like 2 minutes. Yeah, that's the presentation of today. Basically, to let go. Recognize when you are in that stage of you not wanting to let go. Identify why. Ask yourself if you can afford to keep through it, or if it's better for whatever reason to start from scratch. And be cautious. Also be cautious. It's not... I'm not saying that whenever it's difficult, you should quit and restart from scratch. That's not what I'm saying. It's when you are identifying that it would be more beneficial to start from scratch. Don't be afraid to do that. Because sometimes something is hard, but it's still worth it. When you are going to the gym, you have no choice. If you want results, you need to go to through the suffering. It's just about not giving up. In that case, because you know that suffering is part of the process. But when you are studying, when you are spending too much time on something, let's say, to keep this gym example, you are only doing the biceps. Yeah, cool, but at some point you will hurt your biceps if you are doing too much of them. If you are always doing that, you will hurt yourself. You need to rest. You need to rest the other part of your body. If you have ginormous biceps but no shoulders, no pectorals, no forearms, no grasp, at some point, the stuff you will be able to pick up will be so heavy, your biceps might be able to lift them, but maybe your grasp won't be able to handle that. Maybe your shoulder, let's say you're doing a military press like that, maybe your shoulders and your pectoral won't be able to go through that. That's why it's important to not tunnel vision on only one thing for like 8 hours and develop more strategically, get more opportunity to learn and to grow rather than just focusing on only one thing for a long amount of time. If you are following a tutorial, that's different. If you are doing a study, for example, don't do it for 8 hours. It's something we say all the time at school. A study, it's like maximum 1 hour. Beyond that, it's useless. Another tip that I might have said in the past. Something that is very good as a complement when you are studying. Sometimes you are doing speed paints with a time limitation. Something you can also do can be in ZBrush, can be in 3ds Max, can be in Photoshop. You just adapt the exercise. I'm gonna use the Photoshop example. You pick a picture. You have infinite amount of time to do it, but you only have like 200 brushstroke, or 100, or 50, or 30, or 1000 as you want, but you have a limited amount of resource. Every brushstroke that you do contains 1. Every Ctrl-Z also contains 1. Every eraser contains 1. Basically, every action that you do, aside from picking a color, swapping the brush, tweaking it, anything that you do on the canvas that affects the canvas, basically, or your model, contains 1 action. You only have 100 or 200 or 300 max. Don't really like going above that. Maybe on ZBrush you can afford like 500 steps. So you have no pressure of time, but you have that pressure of resource. So you need to force yourself to think before doing every stroke because it's a precious resource. You need to spare that intelligently. try that exercise. You will see that you'll be very surprised by how fast and how good you can do that. It will force you to think before putting the stroke. It forces you to be good right from the start. Every stroke must be good because you can't afford to waste some of them. When you're a spin paint, you are like not really thinking, you are executing. You are cornering yourself. This is good to train yourself to be cornered. But unfortunately, you are not trying yourself to think. It's like all instinct. And this speed paint exercise, it's not speed paint, but brushstroke limited exercise. It's the exact opposite. You are not based on your instinct. You are only based on your logic and reflection to execute the piece. It's a good way to train something complementary. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's tonight's presentation. Tomorrow we are talking about how to learn efficiently pretty much everything pretty fast. Basically how to learn 80 to 90% of the subject pretty fast. Doesn't mean that you will be able to execute that, because as we say, there's a difference between what you know, what you are able to draw, what to produce with your hands. At least, learn that in the head, it's going to be useful. It's just a matter of practice, giving yourself opportunities to fail, not working for too long on exercise, because otherwise you would get bored or pressure yourself to do it well. As you don't know the subject, it will look bad, so you get frustrated and discouraged. It's a vicious circle. If it's short, you don't have the time to think it's going to look good, so you just need to cut corners, make sure that you learn. I'm not focusing on it looking good, just on you learning. This is better for the learning process. That's pretty much it for tonight. Again, if you're watching the replay, you're welcome, Paradox. It's nice to see you again. Hope to see you tomorrow. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, usual speech. As always, we need to play by the algorithm. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to join us on Twitch if you want to interact during the stream, ask questions, talk to me on Discord and stuff like that. Feel free to join the Discord down below. We're building a very nice community that is growing every day of very sweet, highly motivated people that are kicking each other in the butt in a positive way, and that won't give up. Don't forget to join the Discord. You see there is a shotgun emoji. There are a bunch of nice owl emojis, by the way. We're talking D&D, talking art, sharing a walk, talking about business and a lot of stuff. Talking about basically everything mindset related that the school generally won't have the time to teach you because they are too busy teaching you the technique. It's very good. They are generally expecting you to learn the mindset on your own when you're walking. But this way you can become fucking sharks before even getting a job. So you get better paid, are thriving faster and better as an artist right from the start. So yeah, join us on Twitch. Feel free to subscribe, both on YouTube and Twitch. Join the Discord. If you want to share some testimonies or some opinions, if you agree or disagree with what has been said, talk about that in the comments. If you want to further discuss something or to bring some new points of view, I'll be eager to learn about that. If you disagree, same, we can discuss about that and try to figure out a solution together. It will be very nice. And the best way to support me aside from the financial side is by recommending that channel to someone that you think might find it useful. Anyways, thanks a lot for coming tonight. As I was late, no drawing stream tonight. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I need to start doing them again. I know. It's kind of hectic right now. Honestly, I completely forgot that my sister was coming tonight at home and that I had to pick her up at the train station. I completely forgot about that for that week. Sorry, little sister. But yeah, drawing stream coming, I swear. Anyways, take care. Have a nice evening, guys, and see you tomorrow in order to talk about how to learn efficiently pretty much anything and pretty fast. Take care.